Beatrice Thornwood pressed herself against the cold stone wall of the cellar. Her stepmother's voice echoed down the stairs, sharp as broken glass. The woman had locked her down here again, this time for smiling at a guest during tea. Beatrice had not meant to smile. The gentleman had told a joke, and her lips had curved up before she could stop them. That small moment of forgotten misery had cost her dearly. "You will stay there until you remember your place," her stepmother had hissed. "No one wants to see that plain face of yours looking happy. You have nothing to be happy about." The cellar was dark and damp. Water dripped somewhere in the corner. Beatrice wrapped her thin shawl around her shoulders. The fabric was worn and full of holes. It did little to stop the cold from seeping into her bones. She had been down here for hours now, maybe longer. Time moved strangely in the dark. Her stomach growled with hunger. She had not eaten since yesterday morning. A small piece of bread and some weak tea. That was all her stepmother allowed her these days. Beatrice was grateful for even that much. 2 years ago, when her father had died, everything had changed. The kind man who had loved her and called her his little bird was gone. In his place was a stepmother who hated her and 2 stepsisters who found endless ways to torment her. "She thinks herself so fine," her stepsister Prudence often said, "with her airs and her reading, as if books will find her a husband." "No man will want her," the other stepsister Margaret would add with a cruel laugh. "She is too old now, 23 and still unmarried. She will die alone in this house, serving us." Beatrice had stopped arguing with them. There was no point. They were right about one thing. She was 23. Most women her age were married with children. She had no prospects, no dowry, no beauty that men praised. Her father's money had gone to his widow. Beatrice had nothing but the clothes on her back and the books she hid under her mattress. She closed her eyes and tried to remember better times. Her father reading to her by the fire. Her mother, dead since Beatrice was small, who existed only in faded paintings and warm memories. The house had been full of light then. Now it was cold and grey, much like her life. The cellar door opened with a creak. Beatrice looked up, expecting her stepmother. Instead, a servant girl named Molly hurried down the steps. She carried a candle and a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Miss Beatrice," Molly whispered, "I brought you some bread and cheese. Quick now, before the mistress sees." Beatrice took the bundle with shaking hands. "Thank you, Molly. You are too kind." "Someone should be kind to you," Molly said softly. "It ain't right how they treat you. Your father was a good man. He would be angry if he knew." Tears burned in Beatrice's eyes. She blinked them back. Crying changed nothing. "He would be," she agreed quietly. "But he is gone." Molly squeezed her hand. "The mistress says you can come up now, but she wants you in your room. Lord Pembroke is coming to call." Beatrice's heart sank. Lord Pembroke was a friend of her stepmother's, a wealthy man with cold eyes and wandering hands. He had been coming to the house more often lately. Beatrice did not like the way he looked at her, as if she were something he might buy at a market. She ate the bread and cheese quickly. Then she followed Molly up the stairs and through the kitchen. The house was busy with preparations. Servants rushed about with silver trays and fresh flowers. Her stepmother stood in the drawing room, directing everyone with sharp gestures. "There you are," the woman said when she saw Beatrice. "Go upstairs and make yourself presentable. Wear the gray dress, and do something with your hair. You look like a scarecrow." Beatrice kept her eyes down. "Yes, ma'am." She climbed the stairs to her small room at the top of the house. It had once been a servant's quarters. The ceiling sloped low and the single window looked out over the kitchen garden. But it was hers. The one place where she could close the door and breathe. She changed into the gray dress her stepmother had mentioned. It was old and faded, but it was clean. She brushed her hair and pinned it back in a simple style. Her reflection in the small mirror showed a pale face with large eyes. Not beautiful, perhaps, but not ugly either. Just plain. Forgettable. Beatrice made her way back downstairs. Lord Pembroke had arrived. He stood in the drawing room with her stepmother and stepsisters. The older man smiled when he saw her. It was not a kind smile. "Miss Thornwood," he said with a bow, "how lovely to see you." "My lord," Beatrice replied quietly. She curtsied as she had been taught. Her stepmother pushed her forward. "Sit with Lord Pembroke, Beatrice. He has something important to discuss." Beatrice sat on the edge of a chair. Lord Pembroke sat across from her, too close for comfort. His eyes traveled over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "Your stepmother tells me you are in need of a husband," he began. Beatrice's hands tightened in her lap. "I have not thought much about marriage, my lord." "Well, you should think about it," he said with a chuckle. "A woman your age should be grateful for any offer, and I am prepared to make you one." The room seemed to tilt. Beatrice stared at him. "My lord?" "I need a wife," Lord Pembroke continued. "Someone quiet and obedient. Someone who will not make demands. You fit that description well." Beatrice looked at her stepmother. The woman was smiling. "Lord Pembroke is being very generous," her stepmother said. "You should thank him." I am honored, my lord," Beatrice managed to say. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "But surely you would prefer someone younger, someone with a dowry." Lord Pembroke waved his hand. "I have enough money. What I need is a wife who knows her place. Your stepmother assures me you are most biddable." Biddable. The word made Beatrice feel sick. She was not a horse to be broken. But what choice did she have? Her stepmother would throw her out if she refused. She had nowhere to go, no money, no family who cared. Before she could answer, a servant entered the room. "Pardon the interruption, madam, but there is a letter for Miss Thornwood. It was delivered by special messenger." Her stepmother frowned. "A letter? For her?" The servant handed over a cream-colored envelope. The paper was thick and expensive. A red wax seal bore the imprint of a coat of arms. Beatrice recognized it immediately. Everyone in England would recognize it. The seal of the Duke of Ashworth. Her stepmother snatched the letter from her hands. She broke the seal and read quickly. Her face went pale, then red with anger. "This is impossible," she hissed. "What is it?" Lord Pembroke demanded. "The Duke of Ashworth has requested Miss Thornwood's presence at Ashworth Hall," her stepmother said through clenched teeth. "He wishes to discuss a matter of great importance." Lord Pembroke stood abruptly. "The Duke? Why would he be interested in her?" "I do not know," her stepmother said. She looked at Beatrice with suspicion and fury. "What have you done?" Beatrice shook her head. "Nothing, ma'am. I have never even met the Duke." But her heart was racing. Everyone knew about the Duke of Ashworth. Marcus Aldridge was the most powerful man in the county, perhaps in all of England. He was wealthy beyond measure. He owned more land than most nobles combined, and he was feared. Stories about him spread through London society like wildfire. They said he was cold and cruel, that his first wife had died under mysterious circumstances, that he had no heart left in his chest. Why would such a man summon her? Her stepmother grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. "You will go to Ashworth Hall tomorrow, and you will not embarrass this family. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," Beatrice whispered. That night, she lay in her narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. Fear coiled in her stomach like a living thing. What could the Duke possibly want with her? Nothing good, surely. Men like him did not notice women like her unless they wanted something. She thought about running away. But where would she go? She had no friends, no relatives who would take her in, and her stepmother would hunt her down anyway. There was no escape. So Beatrice did what she had done for the past 2 years. She endured. She closed her eyes and waited for morning to come. The carriage arrived at dawn. It was black and polished to a shine. The horses were magnificent beasts, perfectly matched. The driver wore the Duke's livery. He did not smile when he helped Beatrice inside. He simply handed her up and closed the door. The journey to Ashworth Hall took 3 hours. Beatrice watched the countryside roll past the windows. Fields gave way to forests, small cottages became grand estates, and then, rising up from the land like a stone mountain, was Ashworth Hall itself. The house was enormous, 4 stories tall with wings stretching out on either side. Windows gleamed in the morning sun. Gardens surrounded the building, perfectly manicured and beautiful. It looked like something from a fairy tale, but Beatrice knew that fairy tales often had monsters hiding inside castles. The carriage stopped at the front entrance. A butler appeared immediately. He was an older man with a stern face and perfect posture. "Miss Thornwood," he said with a bow. "His Grace is expecting you. Please follow me." Beatrice climbed the steps on trembling legs. The entrance hall was made of white marble. Paintings of stern ancestors lined the walls. A grand staircase curved up to the floors above. Everything spoke of wealth and power. The butler led her through several corridors. Her footsteps echoed on the polished floors. Finally, they stopped before a set of double doors. "His Grace's study," the butler announced. He knocked twice, then opened the doors. The room beyond was large and lined with books. A fire burned in the hearth despite the warm day, and behind a massive desk sat the Duke of Ashworth himself. Marcus Aldridge was younger than Beatrice had expected, perhaps 30 years old. He was tall and broad-shouldered, even while sitting. Dark hair fell across his forehead. His eyes were grey, the colour of storm clouds. His face was handsome but hard, as if carved from the same stone as his house. He looked up when she entered. Those grey eyes studied her with an intensity that made her want to run. "Miss Thornwood," he said. His voice was deep and smooth. "Please, sit." Beatrice sat in the chair across from his desk. Her hands were clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles turned white. The Duke stood and walked around the desk. He moved like a predator, all controlled power. He stopped a few feet away from her, still watching her with those unsettling eyes. "I will not waste your time with pleasantries," he said. "I need a wife. You need a home. I believe we can help each other." Beatrice's mouth went dry. "Your Grace, I do not understand." "It is quite simple," he replied. "I am tired of society's demands. They insist I remarry. I need an heir, but I have no interest in love or romance. I want a wife who will not expect such things from me." "And you think I am such a woman?" Beatrice asked quietly. His lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. "I know you are. I have made inquiries about you, Miss Thornwood. You have no money, no prospects. Your stepmother treats you abominably. You are running out of options." Shame burned hot in Beatrice's chest. He knew. This powerful man knew about her humiliation, her poverty, her worthlessness. "Lord Pembroke has offered for me," she said, lifting her chin. "I do have one option." The Duke's expression darkened. "Pembroke is a fool and a brute. He has buried 3 wives already. I suspect the 4th will not fare much better." Beatrice's blood ran cold. She had not known that. "Marry me instead," the Duke continued. "I will not promise you love, but I will promise you safety, respect, a home where you will not be locked in cellars or starved." Beatrice's head snapped up. "How did you know about that?" "I told you. I made inquiries." He moved closer. "I know everything about you, Beatrice Thornwood, and I am offering you a way out." "Why?" she whispered. "Why me?" For the first time, something flickered in his grey eyes, something that might have been pain. "Because you will not expect me to be anything other than what I am, a man with no heart left to give." Beatrice looked at him, really looked at him. Beneath the cold exterior she saw loneliness, a deep, aching loneliness that matched her own. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow," he replied. "I have already obtained a special license." "Tomorrow," she repeated. Her life was changing so fast she could barely keep up. Yesterday, she had been locked in a cellar. Today, she was agreeing to marry a duke. Tomorrow, she would be a duchess. "Do you accept?" he asked. Beatrice thought about Lord Pembroke's wandering hands, her stepmother's cruelty, the endless days of hunger and cold. Then she looked at the Duke. He was frightening, yes, but he had been honest with her. And honesty was something she had not experienced in a long time. "Yes," she said, "I accept." The Duke nodded once. "Good. The housekeeper will show you to your room. The wedding will take place in the chapel at 10 o'clock. A dressmaker will come this evening to fit you for a gown." He turned away from her, back to his desk. The conversation was clearly over. Beatrice stood on shaking legs. A woman in a black dress appeared at the door. She had kind eyes and grey hair pulled back in a neat bun. "I am Mrs. Winters," the woman said gently. "Come along, dear. Let me show you to your chamber." Beatrice followed her out of the study. As they walked through the corridors, Mrs. Winters talked in a soft, soothing voice. "You must not mind His Grace's manner," she said. "He has been through much pain, but he is not cruel. I have served this family for 30 years. I knew him as a boy. He was full of light once." "What happened?" Beatrice asked. Mrs. Winters's face grew sad. "His wife died 3 years ago. Childbirth. The babe died too. A little girl. His Grace has not been the same since." Beatrice's heart ached. She understood that kind of loss, the kind that hollowed you out and left nothing but emptiness behind. "Here we are," Mrs. Winters said, opening a door. The room beyond took Beatrice's breath away. It was enormous, with a 4-poster bed draped in blue silk. Windows overlooked the gardens. A fire blazed in the hearth. There was a dressing table with a real mirror and a wardrobe larger than her old bedroom. This is mine," Beatrice whispered. "Yes, dear," Mrs. Winters said with a smile. "You will be the Duchess. This is the Duchess's chamber." Tears filled Beatrice's eyes. For the first time in 2 years, something warm flickered in her chest. Not quite hope, but perhaps the memory of what hope felt like. That evening, the dressmaker came as promised. She was a bustling woman who measured and pinned and tutted over Beatrice's thin frame. "We will need to feed you up," she declared, "but we will make you beautiful tomorrow. Never you worry." Beautiful. Beatrice had never thought of herself as beautiful, but as she stood before the mirror in the flowing white gown the dressmaker created, she saw something different in her reflection. Not beauty, perhaps, but dignity, worth. The next morning arrived too quickly. Beatrice woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. Maids came to help her dress and arrange her hair. They were gentle and respectful, calling her "my lady" and "your grace to be." At 10 o'clock, Mrs. Winters led her to the chapel. It was a small stone building on the estate grounds. Inside, candles flickered on the altar. The Duke stood waiting in a black coat and crisp white cravat. A vicar stood beside him, holding a prayer book. There were no guests, no flowers, no music, just the necessary people to make the marriage legal. Beatrice walked down the short aisle on trembling legs. The Duke watched her approach with that same unreadable expression. When she reached his side, he offered her his arm. His touch was warm through the fabric of her gown. The ceremony was brief. They spoke their vows in quiet voices. The Duke's hand was steady when he slipped a gold ring onto her finger. Beatrice's hand shook when she did the same for him. "I now pronounce you man and wife," the vicar said. The Duke turned to her. For one moment, Beatrice thought he might kiss her, but he simply nodded and offered his arm again. They walked out of the chapel as husband and wife, the Duke of Ashworth and his new Duchess. A wedding breakfast had been laid out in the dining room. Beatrice had never seen so much food: eggs and ham and fresh bread with butter, pastries and fruit and cheese. Her stomach growled. "Eat," the Duke said, sitting across from her. "You are too thin." Beatrice ate slowly, trying to remember her manners, but it was difficult when she was so hungry. The Duke watched her for a moment, then returned to his own plate. They ate in silence. When the meal was finished, the Duke stood. "I have business to attend to," he said. "Mrs. Winters will show you the house. You may go anywhere you wish except my study when the door is closed. Dinner is at 7. Then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Beatrice sat alone at the long table. She was married. She was a duchess, and she had never felt more alone in her life. But Mrs. Winters appeared with a warm smile. "Come, Your Grace, let me show you your new home." The afternoon passed in a blur of rooms and corridors. Ashworth Hall was even larger than Beatrice had realized. There was a ballroom with crystal chandeliers, a library with thousands of books, a music room with a beautiful pianoforte, gardens that stretched for acres, stables full of fine horses. "His Grace wants you to feel at home here," Mrs. Winters said. "You may redecorate any room as you wish, well, except his study." "I would not presume," Beatrice said softly. Mrs. Winters patted her hand. "You are the Duchess now, dear. This is your home as much as his." That night, Beatrice dressed for dinner in a new gown the dressmaker had left. It was pale blue silk that brought out the colour of her eyes. A maid arranged her hair in soft curls. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The Duke was already in the dining room when she arrived. He stood when she entered, his eyes travelling over her. Something flickered in his gaze. Surprise, perhaps, or appreciation. "You look well," he said. "Thank you, Your Grace," Beatrice replied. "Marcus," he corrected. "We are married. You should use my name." "Marcus," she repeated softly. The name felt strange on her tongue. They sat at opposite ends of the long table. Servants brought course after course of delicious food. Beatrice tried to eat slowly, but everything tasted wonderful after years of near starvation. Marcus watched her over his wineglass. "You are hungry," he observed. Shame heated her cheeks. "I apologize. I do not mean to be unladylike." "I did not criticize you," he said. "I merely observed. Your stepmother did not feed you properly." "No," Beatrice admitted. "She did not." "That will not happen here," Marcus said firmly. "You will eat 3 meals a day. More if you wish." Tears pricked at Beatrice's eyes. Such a simple kindness, but it meant everything. After dinner, Marcus stood. "I will show you something," he said. He led her through the house to the library. The room was magnificent, with shelves reaching to the ceiling. The smell of old leather and paper filled the air. "You may read anything here," Marcus said. "I was told you enjoy books." Beatrice stared at the thousands of volumes. It was more than she had ever dreamed of. "Thank you," she whispered. "I will leave you to explore," he said, but he paused at the door. "Beatrice?" She turned to look at him. "You are safe here," he said quietly. "I want you to know that." Then he was gone, leaving her alone with the books and a warmth in her chest that felt almost like happiness. That night, Beatrice lay in her enormous bed and stared at the canopy above her. She was married to a duke, a man she did not know, a man who claimed to have no heart left. But he had given her food and shelter and books. He had given her safety. Perhaps that was enough. Sleep came slowly, and with it, dreams of a future that might not be as dark as she had feared. The next morning, Beatrice woke to find breakfast on a tray beside her bed. Fresh rolls and jam, tea with milk and sugar. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. A note lay beside the tray. She unfolded it with careful fingers. "I will be away on business for 3 days. Make yourself at home. Marcus." 3 days alone in this vast house. Beatrice did not know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. She spent the morning exploring. She walked through the gardens, breathing in the scent of roses. She sat in the music room and played the pianoforte. Her fingers were clumsy at first. She had not played in years. But the music came back to her, note by note. In the afternoon, she returned to the library. She chose a book of poetry and curled up in a chair by the window. The words washed over her, beautiful and sad. For 3 days, Beatrice lived in a kind of dream. She ate when she was hungry. She read until her eyes grew tired. She walked in the gardens until her legs ached. And slowly, the constant tension in her shoulders began to ease. The servants were kind. They called her "Your Grace" and treated her with respect. Mrs. Winters checked on her often, making sure she had everything she needed. "You look better already," the housekeeper said on the second day. "Colour in your cheeks. That is good to see." On the third evening, Beatrice was in the library when she heard the sound of horses. She looked out the window to see Marcus dismounting in the courtyard. Even from a distance, she could see the weariness in his movements. She should greet him, she thought. A good wife would be waiting in the hall, but fear held her in place. What if he regretted marrying her? What if 3 days had been enough to make him realize his mistake? But Marcus did not come to the library. She heard his footsteps in the hall outside, then they faded away toward his study. Beatrice waited. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, she worked up her courage and made her way to the study. The door was closed. She raised her hand to knock, then hesitated. Perhaps he wanted to be alone. Perhaps she was bothering him. But before she could turn away, the door opened. Marcus stood in the doorway. He looked tired. Shadows darkened the skin under his eyes. His cravat was loosened, and his hair fell across his forehead. "I heard footsteps," he said. "I wanted to welcome you home," Beatrice said softly, "but I did not wish to intrude." Something softened in his expression. "You are my wife. You are not an intrusion." He stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. Beatrice walked into the study. It was a masculine room, all dark wood and leather. Papers covered the desk. A glass of whiskey sat beside them. "How is your business?" she asked. "Tedious," he replied. He poured another glass of whiskey, but necessary. He looked at her for a long moment. "You look well," he said. "Better than when you arrived." "I am," Beatrice admitted. "Thank you. For the library. For everything." Marcus nodded. He took a drink of whiskey, then set the glass down. "I am glad you are comfortable here." An awkward silence fell between them. Beatrice did not know what to say. How did one talk to a husband who was still a stranger? "I should let you rest," she said finally. "Stay," Marcus said suddenly. Then, more gently, "Please, stay and talk with me." Beatrice sat in one of the leather chairs. Marcus sat across from her, the firelight playing across his features. "Tell me about yourself," he said. "What do you like, besides books?" Beatrice thought about it. "Music," she said. "I used to play the pianoforte before my father died." "There is a pianoforte in the music room," Marcus said. "You should play again." "I have been," Beatrice admitted. "I hope that is all right." "This is your home," Marcus said. "You do not need my permission to use the pianoforte." They talked for an hour. Small things, simple things. Beatrice told him about her father, about the books she loved, about the garden at her childhood home. Marcus listened, asking questions now and then. He did not talk much about himself, but he seemed content to let her fill the silence. Finally, Beatrice stood. "I should let you sleep," she said. Marcus stood as well. "Good night, Beatrice." "Good night, Marcus." She made her way to her chamber and climbed into bed. For the first time since her father died, she felt something like peace. The days settled into a pattern. Marcus was often busy with estate business, but he took his meals with Beatrice. They talked about books and music and the weather. Small talk, mostly, but it was pleasant. In the evenings, they sometimes sat together in the library. Marcus would work on correspondence while Beatrice read. It was companionable, comfortable. One night, 2 weeks after their wedding, Beatrice played the pianoforte while Marcus listened. Her fingers moved over the keys, bringing forth a sad melody. When the last note faded, she looked up to find Marcus watching her with an expression she could not name. "That was beautiful," he said quietly. "Thank you," Beatrice replied. "It was one of my mother's favorite songs." "You miss her," Marcus said. "I do," Beatrice admitted, "even though I barely remember her." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I miss my daughter, even though I never got to know her." Beatrice's heart ached. She wanted to reach out to him, to offer comfort, but she did not know if he would welcome it. "I am sorry," she said softly. "So am I," Marcus replied. They sat in silence, two wounded souls finding unexpected companionship in their shared grief. A month after the wedding, Marcus announced that they would host a dinner. "Some of my neighbors have been asking to meet you," he said. "It would be rude to refuse them any longer." Beatrice's stomach twisted with anxiety. Meeting society, being judged. She had spent her life being told she was worthless. What if they saw through her? What if they realized she was not good enough to be a duchess? "Hey," Marcus said, tilting her chin up with gentle fingers. "You will be fine. You are my wife, my duchess. They will treat you with respect." Beatrice nodded, trying to believe him. The dinner was a trial. 6 couples arrived, all dressed in their finest. The women looked at Beatrice with curious eyes. The men bowed and called her, "Your Grace." Beatrice smiled and made conversation. She remembered her manners. She was polite and proper. But inside she felt like a fraud. One of the women, Lady Pemberton, took Beatrice aside after dinner. "You must tell us how you captured our elusive Duke," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "I did not capture him, my lady," Beatrice replied quietly. "We simply found that we suited each other." "How fortunate for you," Lady Pemberton said, "to rise so high from such humble beginnings." The words stung, but Beatrice kept her expression calm. "Fortune had little to do with it, my lady. The Duke is a man of excellent judgment." Lady Pemberton's eyes narrowed, but before she could reply, Marcus appeared at Beatrice's side. His hand settled on her lower back, warm and possessive. "Lady Pemberton," he said coolly, "I hope you are not tiring my wife with questions." "Of course not, Your Grace," Lady Pemberton said quickly. "I was simply welcoming her to our neighborhood." "How kind of you," Marcus said, in a tone that suggested it was anything but. "If you will excuse us." He guided Beatrice away, his hand still at her back. When they were out of earshot, he leaned down to whisper in her ear. "She is a viper," he said. "Do not let her venom poison you." Beatrice managed a smile. "I will try." The evening finally ended. The guests departed with many bows and curtsies. When the last carriage rolled away, Beatrice sagged against the wall. "You did well," Marcus said. "I felt like a performing animal," Beatrice admitted. Marcus smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. "Welcome to society. It improves only slightly with practice." Beatrice laughed. It was the first time she had laughed in his presence. The sound surprised both of them. Marcus's smile widened. "You should laugh more," he said. "I have not had much to laugh about," Beatrice replied. "Neither have I," Marcus admitted. "Perhaps we can change that." Something shifted between them in that moment, a small crack in the walls they had both built around their hearts. That night, Beatrice lay in bed and thought about her husband. He was not what she had expected. Beneath the cold exterior was a man capable of kindness, of understanding, of protecting her from cruel society matrons. She found herself thinking about him more and more. The way his eyes crinkled when he almost smiled, the sound of his voice when he read aloud in the library, the warmth of his hand on her back. It was dangerous, these thoughts. Marcus had been clear. This was not a love match. He had no heart to give. But Beatrice's heart, battered and bruised as it was, did not listen to reason. It began to hope. 2 months after their wedding, something happened that changed everything. Beatrice woke in the middle of the night to screaming. She threw on her dressing gown and rushed into the hall. The sound was coming from Marcus's chamber. She opened his door without knocking. Marcus thrashed in his bed, caught in the grip of a nightmare. His face was twisted with anguish. "No!" he cried out. "Please, no! Not again!" Beatrice rushed to his side. She touched his shoulder gently. "Marcus, wake up. It is only a dream." His eyes flew open. For a moment he did not seem to see her. Then recognition dawned. He sat up, breathing hard. Sweat dampened his hair and nightshirt. "Beatrice," he said hoarsely. "You were having a nightmare," she said softly. Marcus pressed his hands to his face. "I am sorry. I did not mean to wake you." "Do not apologize," Beatrice said. She sat on the edge of his bed. "Do you want to talk about it?" Marcus shook his head. But then, slowly, the words began to pour out. "I dream about my wife," he said, "about finding her in a pool of blood, about holding my daughter and knowing she was already gone. I dream about it every night." His voice broke. Beatrice saw tears on his cheeks. Without thinking, she wrapped her arms around him. Marcus stiffened for a moment. Then, with a shuddering breath, he held her back. He buried his face in her shoulder and wept. Beatrice held him through it all. She stroked his hair and whispered soothing words. She let him break in her arms. When the storm passed, Marcus pulled back. His eyes were red but clear. "I told you I had no heart left to give," he said quietly. "That was not entirely true. My heart is still here, but it is so broken, I did not think it could ever work again." "Hearts can heal," Beatrice said softly, "given time and care." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. "You are extraordinary," he whispered. "Do you know that?" Beatrice shook her head. "I am ordinary, plain. That is what I have always been told." Marcus cupped her face in his hands. His touch was gentle. "You are beautiful," he said. "Not just your face, though that is lovely, but your spirit, your kindness, your strength. You have endured so much and you are not bitter. That is extraordinary." Tears filled Beatrice's eyes. No one had ever called her beautiful before. "I can taste your fear," Marcus whispered, leaning closer. "You are afraid that I do not mean these words, that I am playing with you." A tear slipped down Beatrice's cheek. Marcus leaned forward and licked the tear from her face. The gesture was strange, intimate. It should have frightened her, but somehow it did not. "I mean every word," he said. "You have become important to me, Beatrice. More important than I ever imagined possible." "Marcus," Beatrice breathed. He kissed her, softly at first, then deeper. Beatrice had never been kissed before. It was overwhelming and wonderful. She kissed him back, pouring all her confused feelings into that kiss. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "Stay with me tonight," Marcus said. "Just to sleep. I do not want to be alone." Beatrice nodded. She climbed into his bed, and he wrapped his arms around her. She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus slept peacefully. And for the first time in 2 years, Beatrice felt truly safe. Everything changed after that night. Marcus began to court her. That was the only word for it. He brought her flowers from the garden. He asked her to ride with him in the mornings. He sought her company at every opportunity. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Marcus told her about his childhood, about his parents long dead, about the weight of responsibility he had carried from such a young age. Beatrice told him about her father, about the loneliness of her stepmother's house, about the small rebellions that had kept her spirit alive. "You are stronger than you know," Marcus said one afternoon as they walked through the gardens. "I never felt strong," Beatrice admitted. "I felt like I was barely surviving." "Surviving is its own kind of strength," Marcus replied. He took her hand. "And now you do not merely survive, you live." Beatrice squeezed his hand. "Because of you." "Because of us," Marcus corrected. They grew closer with each passing day. Marcus smiled more, laughed occasionally. The shadows under his eyes faded. He looked younger, happier. Beatrice bloomed under his attention. She gained weight and her cheeks filled out. Her eyes sparkled. She walked with her head high instead of downcast. The servants noticed the change in both of them. Mrs. Winters told Beatrice one day, "I have not seen His Grace this happy in years. You have been good for him, Your Grace." "He has been good for me too," Beatrice replied. 3 months after their wedding, Marcus took Beatrice to London. They attended balls and dinners. Society stared at them with curious eyes. The cold duke, who never smiled, was now attentive and affectionate with his plain wife. Beatrice heard the whispers. What does he see in her? She must have trapped him somehow. It cannot last. But Marcus did not care what they said. He danced with her at every ball. He introduced her with pride. When people tried to slight her, he cut them with a few cold words. At one ball, Lord Pembroke approached them. He looked at Beatrice with confusion and anger. "Miss Thornwood," he said, "or should I say, Your Grace?" "Lord Pembroke," Beatrice replied coolly. "I heard you married the Duke rather suddenly," Pembroke said. His eyes were calculating. One might wonder what convinced him to make such a match. Marcus stepped between them. His eyes were hard as flint. "One might wonder why you are speaking to my wife in such a familiar manner," he said softly, "particularly given your reputation." Pembroke paled. "Your Grace, I meant no offence." "Good," Marcus said, "because if you speak to the Duchess again, I will take offence, and I can promise you will not enjoy the consequences." Pembroke bowed stiffly and left. Beatrice watched him go with satisfaction. "Thank you," she said to Marcus. "Always," he replied. He offered his arm. "Dance with me." They waltzed across the floor. Marcus held her close, closer than propriety demanded. Beatrice did not care. She felt safe in his arms, cherished. "I am falling in love with you," Marcus said suddenly. "I thought you should know." Beatrice's heart stopped. Then it started again, beating wildly. "I am already in love with you," she confessed. Marcus smiled. It was a real smile, bright and joyful. "Then we are fortunate indeed." They left the ball early. In the carriage, Marcus pulled her onto his lap and kissed her thoroughly. By the time they reached their townhouse, both were flushed and breathless. That night, their marriage became a true union in every sense. Marcus was gentle and patient. He worshipped Beatrice with his hands and mouth and body. He showed her what it meant to be loved completely. Afterward, they lay tangled together. Beatrice traced patterns on Marcus's chest. "I never imagined I could be this happy," she whispered. "Neither did I," Marcus replied. He kissed her forehead. "You have given me my life back, Beatrice. You have made me want to live again." "You have done the same for me," she said. They returned to Ashworth Hall a week later. The estate felt different now. It was not just a grand house, it was home. Summer turned to autumn. Beatrice and Marcus were inseparable. They rode together in the mornings. They worked side by side on estate business. In the evenings, they sat by the fire and read to each other. The nightmares that had plagued Marcus for years grew less frequent. When they did come, Beatrice was there to hold him. "You chase away the darkness," he told her one night. "We chase it away together," she replied. Everything seemed perfect. Too perfect, perhaps, because perfect things do not last. The letter arrived on a cold October morning. Beatrice recognized the handwriting immediately. Her stepmother. With shaking hands, she broke the seal and read. Her stepmother was demanding money. A great deal of money. If Beatrice did not provide it, the woman threatened to tell society lies about Beatrice's past. She would say that Beatrice had trapped the Duke, that she had used dark arts, that she had been impure before marriage. Beatrice knew the Ton would believe it. They already whispered about her. This would be the excuse they needed to destroy her reputation, and Marcus's along with it. Panic rose in her chest. What should she do? If she told Marcus, he would be furious. He might do something rash. But if she paid her stepmother, the demands would never stop. She was still staring at the letter when Marcus entered the library. "Beatrice," he said, "what is wrong?" She tried to hide the letter, but Marcus saw it. He crossed the room in 3 strides and took it from her trembling hands. His face darkened as he read. "This woman dares to threaten you?" he said, his voice dangerously soft. "Marcus, please," Beatrice said. "Do not do anything rash." "Rash?" Marcus looked at her. "She is trying to blackmail you, to hurt you." "I know," Beatrice said. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "But if you retaliate, it will cause a scandal. People will ask questions, they will whisper." "Let them whisper," Marcus said fiercely. He pulled her into his arms. "I do not care what they say. No one threatens my wife." "What will you do?" Beatrice asked. Marcus's smile was cold. "I will pay your stepmother a visit, and I will make very clear what happens to people who threaten the Duchess of Ashworth." 3 days later, Marcus returned from his trip. He looked satisfied. "It is handled," he told Beatrice. "Your stepmother will not bother you again." "What did you do?" Beatrice asked nervously. "I had a conversation with her," Marcus said. "I explained that if she ever contacts you again, I will use my considerable influence to destroy what little reputation she has left. I also reminded her that attempting to blackmail a duke is a crime punishable by imprisonment." Beatrice sagged with relief. "Thank you." "You never have to thank me for protecting you," Marcus said. He kissed her gently. "It is my privilege and my joy." But the damage had been done. The incident reminded Beatrice of her old insecurities. She began to withdraw, to doubt. What if Marcus realized he had made a mistake? What if society's whispers eventually poisoned his feelings for her? What if she was not enough? Marcus noticed the change. "Talk to me," he pleaded. "Tell me what is wrong." But Beatrice could not find the words. The old fears had their claws in her again. One evening, Marcus found her crying in the library. He knelt before her, his face filled with concern. "Beatrice, please," he said. "You are breaking my heart." "I am sorry," she sobbed. "I know I should be strong, but I keep thinking that this cannot last, that you will wake up one day and regret marrying me." Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "Look at me," he commanded gently. Beatrice met his grey eyes. They were filled with such love and certainty that it stole her breath. "I will never regret you," Marcus said. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. You brought light into my darkness. You gave me a reason to live again. Do you understand? Without you, I am empty." "But what if I am not enough?" Beatrice whispered. "You are everything," Marcus replied. He kissed her tears away. "You are my wife, my love, my home. There is nothing and no one more important to me than you." His words broke through her fear. Beatrice threw her arms around him and held on tight. "I love you," she said. "I love you so much it frightens me." "I love you too," Marcus replied, "and I will spend every day of my life proving it to you." They held each other as the fire burned low. 2 broken souls who had found healing in each other's arms. Winter came to Ashworth Hall. Snow covered the gardens and frost painted the windows, but inside there was warmth and joy. On Christmas morning, Beatrice woke to find Marcus watching her. "I have a gift for you," he said. He led her to the ballroom. Inside, waiting by the windows, was a beautiful new pianoforte. It was made of polished mahogany and decorated with gold leaf. "Marcus," Beatrice breathed, "it is beautiful." "Play something for me," he said. Beatrice sat at the instrument and let her fingers find the keys. Music filled the ballroom, sweet and joyful. When the last note faded, she turned to find Marcus standing behind her. "I have something else for you," he said. He held out a small box. Inside was a necklace, diamonds and sapphires arranged in a delicate pattern. It was the most beautiful thing Beatrice had ever seen. "This belonged to my mother," Marcus said, "and now it belongs to you." Tears filled Beatrice's eyes. "I do not deserve this." "You deserve everything," Marcus replied. He fastened the necklace around her throat. Then he turned her to face him. "You deserve to be loved and cherished, and I will make sure you never doubt that again." Beatrice kissed him. "I have a gift for you too," she said shyly. She handed him a small package. Inside was a leather-bound journal. On the first page, Beatrice had written a poem, words of love and gratitude, words that came from the deepest part of her heart. Marcus read it slowly. When he finished, his eyes were bright with tears. "This is the greatest gift I have ever received," he said hoarsely. They spent the rest of Christmas Day together, just the two of them. They walked in the snow-covered gardens. They sat by the fire and talked. They made love slowly and sweetly. It was perfect. Spring arrived with a burst of color. The gardens bloomed, birds sang in the trees, and Beatrice discovered she was expecting a child. She told Marcus one evening in the library. Fear and joy warred in her heart. She knew his first child had died. This news might bring him pain instead of happiness. But when Marcus heard, his face transformed. Joy and wonder replaced the fear in his eyes. "A baby," he whispered. He dropped to his knees and pressed his face against her stomach. "We are going to have a baby." Beatrice stroked his hair. "Are you happy?" Marcus looked up at her with tears streaming down his face. "I am terrified," he admitted. "But yes, I am happy. So happy." He stood and pulled her into his arms. "I will not lose you," he said fiercely. "I will hire the best doctors. You will have everything you need." "I will be fine," Beatrice said softly. "We will be fine." The month passed slowly. Marcus hovered over Beatrice constantly. He would not let her lift anything heavy. He made sure she ate well and rested often. "You are being ridiculous," Beatrice told him with a laugh. "I cannot help it," Marcus replied. He kissed her forehead. "You are too precious to risk." In December, just before Christmas, their daughter was born. The labor was long and difficult. Marcus paced outside the room like a caged animal. When the baby's cry finally echoed through the house, he burst into tears. The midwife brought him inside. Beatrice lay exhausted but smiling in the bed. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in white. "A girl," Beatrice said softly. "We have a daughter." Marcus approached slowly, as if in a dream. He looked down at his daughter's red face and tiny hands. Love crashed over him like a wave. "She is perfect," he whispered. He touched the baby's cheek with one finger. "You are perfect." He sat on the edge of the bed and gathered both wife and daughter into his arms. "Thank you," he said to Beatrice. "Thank you for this gift, for coming into my life, for loving me, for giving me a family." Beatrice leaned against his shoulder. "Thank you for rescuing me, for seeing me, for loving me back." They sat together, the three of them, a family born from pain and loneliness, a family built on love and healing. "What shall we name her?" Marcus asked. Beatrice smiled. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." "Hope," Marcus repeated. He kissed his daughter's forehead. "Welcome to the world, little Hope. You are already so loved." The years that followed were full of joy. Hope grew into a bright, curious child. She had her mother's kind heart and her father's stubbornness. 2 more children followed, a son named Thomas and another daughter named Rose. Ashworth Hall rang with laughter and music. The cold, empty house became a home full of love and light. Marcus never lost his nightmares entirely, but they were rare now. And when they came, Beatrice was always there to hold him. Beatrice never forgot what it felt like to be worthless and alone. She used her position as Duchess to help young women in similar situations. She opened a home for girls with nowhere else to go. She gave them education and hope. Society eventually accepted her. How could they not? The Duke was clearly besotted with his wife, and the Duchess was kind and gracious to everyone she met. One evening, many years later, Marcus and Beatrice sat in the library. Their children were asleep upstairs. The fire crackled softly. "Do you remember the night we met?" Beatrice asked. "Of course," Marcus said. He smiled. "I told you I needed a wife who would not expect love." "And I believed you," Beatrice said with a laugh. "I believed it too," Marcus admitted. He pulled her closer. "I was a fool. I did not know that love was not something you give away and lose. Love is something that grows when you share it." "You are a wise man," Beatrice teased. "Only because I married a wise woman," Marcus replied. He kissed her softly. "I love you, Beatrice Aldridge, now and always." "I love you too," Beatrice said. "My husband, my love, my home." They sat together in comfortable silence. 2 people who had been broken and lost. 2 people who had found each other in the darkness, and together they had built something beautiful. A love that healed, a family that thrived, a life that was better than either had dared to dream. Outside, snow began to fall. Inside, the fire burned warm and bright. And in that moment, everything was perfect.